Okay, this is a note about a remarkable book called the Brown's Nautical Almanac. It's well-known probably in the United Kingdom, throughout the British Isles, maybe less so in the United States, but that's what I want to let other readers learn about. It's a great, huge, thick book here, and it sells for $85 in the U.S. And then but for reference, though, this is an old book. It's been out since the late 1800s, rather. And here's our one of our copies from our library from 1945. And just to show the basic cover hasn't really changed, the content has a little bit changed. Oh, it's expanded, frankly. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside, maybe come back to it. There's a lot of interesting things to look at in these older editions, and then what I'm going to probably recommend is you go look in a library or see if you have a bookstore that might have one of these to take a look at. And because even an outdated one has some very useful information. It is really focused towards the British Isles, but there's so much unique general navigation information that it's worth having a look at. So I'm going to not be able to do anywhere justice to this thing, but I just want to skim through and show you some of the things that's in it. Here's page after page of the contents, and it's also called a Nautical Almanac. See all of this. These are contents. Let me just go here. Phases of the moon. Okay, and these are corrections for sextant altitude corrections. Okay, so now we're getting into, these are things from the Nautical Almanac. Corrections for the moon's phases and so forth. But here's the point. This thing now, let me come here. These are actual, I don't know how well we can see it in the video, but these are identical reproductions of the Nautical Almanac, published by the U.S. government and the British government. So it's not like it's the same data, it's identical pages. So you get, it is really true what it says is Nautical Almanac. A lot of books, like there's something called the Reed's Nautical Almanac, has absolutely nothing to do these days with the Nautical Almanac. Years ago, the Reed's Almanac had an almanac in it, but it does not now. So it's got a misnomer. But this one has a real almanac. Okay, a real Nautical Almanac, and that's taken. And here's the increments and corrections for those who know about almanacs. And then we start in to some of the special things. This is like notes on how to find stars, and practical. Now, and this is interesting. This is a sort of background. It's explaining how some of these corrections in the almanac work. Meridian and Azimuth table. These are ways if you miss the noon sight, you can still get a latitude from it. Speed, time, and distance tables. Then there's a lot in this book, in this section, and further in the back, there's a lot in for professional mariners on trim calculations. So here's all the formulas for trim calculations. Then we get in, this is all still trim. These are now getting to some sophisticated navigation. Some of these tables are in Bowditch, but this has a couple unique things. This is just distance off by 2 bearings, and also the projection onto when you go past it on a beam. These are unique things not in Bowditch, which basically show tables of how to solve these vector triangles that come up in various aspects of navigation. Passage time. This book assumes you don't have a calculator. And you don't own a calculator, because it does calculate all these passage times and so forth. Then it gives all the tides in the daily tables for the British Isle locations. Now, later in the book, it's got some generic information. What's it called? Station, no, I forget the name, the technical word, but it gives you some constants that you can calculate tide data for other places in the world. Now, it won't be really exact, but it's tied to the times of the high, full moon, and new moon meridian passage. And So chart datums, information on chart datums. What do we got? These are more tide information. Here's some currents again for the British Isles. Traffic separation schemes. Let's see, tidal constants. Oh, here it is, tidal constants for world ports. And then you read the instructions, and then with these constants, it tells you how to figure the time of high tide and low tide as a corrections from the meridian passage of the moon, which you get from the earlier almanac section. Okay, traffic separation. Okay, then traffic separation schemes in that area. Courses and distances. These are again all in the British Isles. Let's go through that. Navigable distances. These are again port-to-port distances. Port-to-port distances. Let me take some broad steps in here. Regulate. Okay, so a full copy of the rules of the road, international rules of the road. That's in here. Emergency lifeboat procedures. That's a marine meteorology. Then it goes in and has some correction, barometer correction tables, and then it lists. Haven't got to it yet. Here's ice special terms used in ice forecasting. A marine meteorology glossary, very detailed, useful information. Table VHF transmitting VHF frequencies, international VHF frequencies, just to go on. Let's see. And then safety information. Here's a whole bunch of all the GMDSS and all the Navtex broadcasting stations and all the what are these called? The frequency, the broadcast stations for the emergency information. That's all here. Satellite region. Oh, okay. These are the Met areas, the various Met areas, and I'm not sure. It must be some broadcast times for the Met areas. I'd have to look at that. Let's see. GMDSS. Surface insulation. Then it's got, this is like the National Data Buoy Center. It lists the locations of all the buoys and the lighthouses that have weather data. It's all in here. And what do we have going back here? Okay, then further back, look at this. This is a light list. It basically has the equivalent. It'd be the light list for the British Isles. Now we have online the U.S. light list and the U.S. Coast Guard light list, and we also have the national the NGA International Light List. So we can get the light list data online, but here you're getting all these things in one publication. Then it goes through in the back here is essentially like a coast pilot. They call it piloted services and so forth, but it's a lot of the information that you find in the coast pilot. And it goes on. Here's then in the back, in the very back, you get into even more detailed information about ship stability. So for a professional mariner, okay, that's a kind of, there's a kind of a blast through here. Astronomical, oh, look at this, even how to pronounce the star names. We always argue it doesn't matter how you pronounce those, just say them loud and bold, and other people will think you're right. But anyway, there's some suggestion on how to do that. You could now, if you just sat down on a Sunday afternoon with a comfortable seat, just go through here. If you're interested in navigation, you'll find all sorts of wonderful things. Slip and squat, that's behaviors of vessels, big power-driven vessels, and it's covered in here. Transoceanic passage times, rumline sailing. Okay, so there's ways to do rumline sailing, that's meridional parts, and there's also the Great Circle sailing, that's what's here, Great Circle sailing. Okay, so I'm going to just stop there. I just wanted to show. Oh, and here's how to do, these are again different types of sailings and how they can be solved. some stuff on more trigonometry, spherical trigonometry. Back in the old days, this was all in Bowditch, and you had to learn this to become a navigator. You don't now. Conversion tables and so forth. Fathoms, conversion factors, and so forth. So that's what I wanted to show. Just if you've heard of it, maybe if you haven't heard of it, all navigators should know about this. The Brown's Nautical Almanac dates back to 1800s. Have a look at one in your library and again, if you could run it in a used bookstore or online for used books, if you could find an old copy for a few bucks, that would definitely be worth having to look through all the tables. A large number, I don't know what the number would be, 50%, I don't know. Some large fraction of the information in this book does not go out of date. Maybe it's not quite 50%, and also a lot of the information in here is unique. You won't really see it other places. So that's the note on the Brown's Nautical Almanac.